I have been testing the new 3DAIstudio version 5.0 to create print-ready 3D AR models, and it's quickly becoming one of the most complete tools for taking your AI to 3D workflow to the next level. In this video, we will go step by step through the new pipeline, starting with Image Studio, where you can create stunning reference images from scratch, then using Image to 3D to generate highly detailed models, and finally producing a print-ready 3D asset with baked vertex colors in just a few clicks. In addition to that, I will also show you a technique to create a 3D model with really clean topology by using a combination of Blender and 3DAIstudio. Having said that, let's dive right into it. Alright, so the new 5.0 version introduces major upgrades, especially in model accuracy and texture quality, thanks to the new Prism 3.0 model, which delivers some of the best AI-generated 3D results I have seen so far. And to get started from scratch to generate our model, we first need to head to 3DAIstudio.com. And by the way, in case you would like to try 3DAIstudio yourself, you will find a discount code right down below this video to sign up and to test 3DAIstudio yourself. And once we are then here logged in on the website, what we can see is that we have here on the left Image Studio. And it's always crucial that we have a great base image to start with before generating our 3D model. And to do that, we can use Image Studio in 3DAIstudio actually to generate quickly high quality base images. Especially like it that in 3DAIstudio we can directly create our base image in the tool itself. We can then go to the generate section, which you will see here, and then you can choose between different image models. And my personal favorite is here Flux Pro. You can of course also use Image Gen 3 or Flux Dev or Character Forge, so whatever you like basically, but I prefer Flux Pro, so I will just click on it and then we are directly into the prompt field where we can then generate our base image that we can then later use for 3D printing. And then we can directly type in our prompt once we are here in the window. And what we will do is remove this text here first. And I prepared a prompt already, which is a highly detailed bloater creature from The Last of Us, because I really love the series so far. And we have grotesque fungal growth, bulky mutated humanoid form, etc, etc. And I just made sure that we have like highly detailed in here, because this is one of the keywords I always use to get great 3D models from it. And this is then actually what I'm using most of the times. I also introduced something like ZBrush style sculpt here and matte lighting and no background, so that we have kind of a background that is not distracting and we have our 3D model in the front. And what we're gonna do then is simply click here on generate to start the generation. And you can see that we then get our first result, and we can then keep generating until we find a good creature that we like kind of, and you can do that as many times as you want. You will always see your credits, by the way, here on the bottom, and you will see then your total credits here on the left top. And then after some trying, I came up then with this image here, and once you're then happy with your image, what you can do is then clicking on edit image, and we can do this by, I'm here in the dashboard already because I created this image already up front, but what I can do is then go here to load into Image Studio. For you it will look the same when you click here on the bottom, and then we can go, for example, here to edit then our image, and you can choose then here between different modes again. I can also quickly show you that when I go here into detail and download this image first, then going back to Image Studio, then to edit, and then you will also see here in detail what each generator can do. Most of them are just that you can, for example, turn your 3D character into a T-pose, or you can use it for very specific edits on your image if you want to have something changed. And you can then choose, for example, one of them, and then you will end up here in a text field again. You can then upload here your image. And this is of course especially useful when you want to have details or specific details changed Otherwise, you can of course also leave it as it is, and I will leave it as it is because I really liked the base image already. It's in a great pose also later for printing, for example, and I wanted to keep it that way, but I just wanted to show you this feature because it's really useful, of course, that you have plenty of options to edit your image here. What I always like to do is to upscale my image for best texture and model results, and to do that is that we are again in the image studio section, and then what we can do is go here to utilities, and then we can click, for example, here on upscale, and I will choose here upscale clarity because this preserves most of the detail that we have in our image and simply will upscale it so we have more details later on. And we can do that by click to use. Then we will upload here our new image, which is this one in my case, and then I will go here again on run, and then it will create for us instantly a higher quality image that we can then use for our next step, which is then actually the image to 3D mode. And once done, as you can see, we have then here very high resolution on our base image, which is of course great because now we can then directly go ahead to image to 3D. And to do that is that we simply click here on load into image to 3D, because now comes the time to generate our 3D model. And you can see here already that we have Prism selected, and I'm choosing here Prism 3.0 because it has given me so far the best results from all models I tried in 3DAIstudio. So I can highly recommend you to check out this model. And we do also have a bunch of other models here when we click on it, and then you can see we have, for example, also Forge 2 Gen here, which is great for hard surface objects, but for this video we will stick with Prism 3.0. Otherwise, of course, always feel free to check out the other models, but we will stick for now with Prism 3.0. And to get the best quality possible, we will first change the settings here, and I will choose here first for texture quality, we will go to detailed, and also for geometry detail to really get the highest quality possible. We could also change here for advanced settings, but this is most of the times not really necessary, but just to keep in mind that you can also further adjust your model here in case the output is not satisfying or something like this. And once we have set that, then only thing we really need to do is then again go here to generate 3D model, and then we can take in a second a look at the result. Alright, amazing. And once generated, as you can see, we get then this really highly detailed 3D model over here from one go, and we can also check then our model when we increase the roughness, for example, to have a better view of it. We can also disable the materials for now to really check the details on here. You can even see it better in Blender, which I will show you later on, but overall you can actually see that we got a really decent result from the single view, and I will show you now directly in the next step how you can use the multi-view feature. Alright, so next thing I actually wanted to show you is how to generate multi-views in 3DAIstudio. Since generating multi-views of our character will give us even more control over our 3D generations, because the AI knows exactly which details to prompt from each view. And I will show you now an exact way how to generate multi-view images and how to transform them then into a 3D model. So what we need to do actually is that we go first to our dashboard and then to actually download our image that we just prompted before, and we do that by clicking here simply on download image. Once we have done that, we then go back to our image studio, go to image reference, and then to nano reference, which will open basically Nano Banana. And then we can already start uploading our image over here. I think it's uploaded also already over here. And what we can do now is actually that we going to generate multi-views from each angle. So we can then actually later on generate him with each angle in the multi-view mode itself. So what we need to do is that we go first here, and as you can see, we see him right now more or less from the front, but we can even highlight this. So let's say show character from the front. And this is the only thing we actually need to do. Then we can go to generate, and then Nano Banana will make sure to capture all the details still and really show him in an actual front view. And then as you can see, it's now showing a perfect front view. And when we have that, we can then actually go to download over here. Make just sure to download each image here so we can make sure to upload them then in the next step. Then let's say show character from the left view. Same here. So like this. Then we can download this again, and also make sure to do that the same then for the back view and the right view. And once we have done that, what we can then do is going back to image to 3D. So I will do that quickly over here. And once we are here, then I can go to Prism 3.0 and we can go then to multi-view. And as you can see now, this was just newly implemented a few hours ago actually, but now you can also have multi-view images with Prism 3.0 support, which is amazing, of course, because this will give us the best quality with the multi-view mode. So we will select this one, then use this model. And as you can see, we have now a really cool view here with front, left, back, and right view. So what I can do then is to upload first our front view image. And once we uploaded all 4 views, what we can then do is again choosing here detail, texture quality and geometry detail. And this is all we need to do basically. And then we can go to generate model again and then see what we get. All right, and once the generation is done, as you can see, we get a very solid result with each view angle, and actually also on his face, we have a lot of detail from it. And from each view, we have now this very high detail here, as you can see. Even his booty here, so that's great. Anyways, that's how you use the multi-view feature. So let me know if you find it practical, if you find it useful, and if you have tried it yourself already. And I think this is really great if you want to have a really great 3D model from each view. Another great feature is, by the way, that we can also visualize our progress in a branches mode. So we can quickly jump back and forth between every step of our generation. And to do that is very simple and straightforward. So what we need to do is that we go here to dashboard, where you see, by the way, all the models that you created so far. And what we can do then is that we go here to open. So for example, when I click here on my original image that I had before and click on the dashboard, and what I can now do is that you see here a little button called View Branch on the bottom right, and this is where it will show you now every step, like what you did so far with your 3D model and image generation. And you can see this here when you see this was the first step by creating the image. Then we have here the import image with the GAB that you could also open, and then as you can see, I converted this one time to an OBJ file and another time when I remesh this. And this branch will basically save all the steps that you do with your 3D model in generation. And you can always also jump back and forth with this mode. So you can basically go in here, for example, click on open, and then it will directly open your 3D file. But you could also go in here and open, and then you would be back into the image mode. Then you could also edit your image again, and from there then taking it again into 3D and stuff. So this is a really cool non-destructive way that you can work in, and something that is completely new and that I didn't see with other AI generators at the moment, at least. I also created, by the way, a bunch of other 3D assets with the image to 3D mode. And here you can see as well, for example, also a robotic humanoid I prompted in Midjourney and then generated with Prism 3.0. I also created, for example, a highly detailed pickaxe, which you can see here, but also different characters that are in great poses for 3D printing, which I will show you as well later on in the video, how to export them even with colors. Overall, you can see that 3DAIstudio is giving us great results. Only thing I noticed so far is that it struggles with highly complex hard surface shapes, like for example this highly complex steampunk machine which I generated. Here we can still see that we have some flaws and texture blur when we zoom in on the object, for example. On the other hand, I received here, by the way, really good results with head close-ups, as you can see here, where we get a really great detailed texture. Before we now export our 3D model for 3D printing, I would like to quickly show you how different the results will be in AI 3D depending on if you use text to 3D or image to 3D. Because most of the times you won't achieve as good results with the text to 3D as with the image to 3D mode, because you can't really predict what you get. But let me first show you how it's actually working. So we will go to text to 3D over here, and we first need to type in a prompt. And since I'm, to be honest, too lazy right now to come up with a huge detailed text, I will use ChatGPT. And once we are then in ChatGPT, I will then type in a prompt, and I will type in something like give me a detailed prompt for a game sort, then maybe 3D model, and which will give us great detail for a good base. And then we will go back to texture 3D, then we can type in our text here. So we'll just quickly paste this in. Then I will go here detailed and choose Prism 3.0 again. Then we are going to generate the 3D model. Alright, and this is then what we kind of get by default, which is of course also good. So it's a good start, but I want to show you now the difference when you're using then image to 3D, for example. Alright, and this is then what we get with Flux Pro kind of already out of the box. We can already see here that we get way more details in the image itself. So when we zoom in here, you see all those fine details, and we can now take this then directly again, for example, now into image to 3D, and then taking here again detailed, generate 3D model. And actually once generated, here you can see then a side-by-side comparison between the text to 3D and image to 3D model, and we can actually see that we get then way more detail in the image to 3D. Still, that doesn't mean of course that text to 3D is useless or something. It's still great to create, for example, background props, etc. But for more hero-like assets, I would always recommend to go with the image to 3D mode if possible. So far, it has always been difficult to import your 3D AR model into your 3D printing software with colors. 3DAIstudio has made this really easy. So what do we need to do this? And I will show you step by step is of course to generate our 3D model first. I did that already with the example we had before with our character over here. This might take a little while. And then as you can see here, this is our generated character from before. And to actually know to make it print ready, what we need to do is that we go first here to vertex colors over here. And then you can already see that we have here this option to paint on the color palette in case we would like to have some colors changed for the 3D print itself. But otherwise we can already go ahead now with then downloading the OBJ, and then it will apply all the vertex colors onto the mesh and export that, as you can see here. Prepare your model for 3D printing by applying vertex colors before export. And what we can do now is that we go, for example, to Bamboo Studio to check our result really quick, and if it worked with all the colors exported and everything. And once we're then here on our Bamboo Studio interface, what we can do then, for example, is then going here to File, Import, and then we can see here this Import OBJ option. Then we're going to our download folder and then to model. Then we can directly import it into here. And as you can see, we then already see that we have all. And here you can then already see that we have all the colors applied to it. We can then of course rotate the model and stuff like this. But this is just to show you that we basically have this here. So we can, for example, just rotate it here in X-axis really quick. In the X-axis, so let's say something like this. And then as you can see, we have here our ready model with all the colors applied, which is really cool. And then you can go ahead and 3D print it. We even can add a base underneath our 3D model in case we would like to do this as an optional thing. What we can do then is that we go here to add base on the bottom left and on the bottom left. And what you can do then is here, for example, choosing the cracked stone, and then as you can see, the base will directly be added underneath your 3D model, and then you can take this one and then directly download your GLB file here, and then it will get exported with the base. Of course, you could also do settings and stuff. Just a cool little gimmick in case you would like to print your 3D model with a base underneath. Achieving really clean topology in AI 3D has been one of the greatest challenges so far. This is why I'm going to show you next how you can create a head model with a truly clean topology that you can use later on for facial rigging, for example, or texturing with clean automated UVs. And I just discovered this way, but I think it's really easy and useful to do. So what we need to do first is to generate our head model. And you can see I did some tests here already, but we will do this really quick quick from scratch so you see my progress, what I did here. So first I choose my image that I created here as a base. I think this was a Midjourney, but of course you could use then again here Flux Pro if you would like to use that. And once we have that, what you can do is then clicking here again and generate your 3D model. All right, great. And once it's generated, as you can see here, we need to do two things. We need to export our head model as a high poly mesh, which we are going to need later. So what we need to do is simply just clicking here on download 3D model, and then it will directly be downloaded as a GLB file for us. And the next step is then as well to quad remesh our model by using the built-in quad remesh tool over here, because actually in this case about the remeshing itself, because we will replace and retopologize our model in a second with another method I will show you in Blender itself. But we have this really cool feature called here force symmetry, because at the moment most AI 3D models are not symmetric by default because the original image is also not symmetric, and this is forcing it to be symmetric, and we need that for our retopology step. So this is very crucial and we can do this. By the way, here you also have this option, of course, always to export it for 3D printing if you want to have that. Otherwise I would choose here FBX file. Then for texture options I would choose 4K, but it's not as important for this one. For phase limit I would choose the highest one because we are going to retopologize it anyways, but I would still like to keep as much detail as possible in the base shape. Otherwise we can keep it as is, and then we can go here to start remesh. As you can see here, here's the actual progress right now, and then once it's done you can always go in here and then going to download your quad remeshed model then. Alright, and once we have Blender open, what we need to do is then first to import our high poly mesh. So I will go to File, Import GLB, and as we can see we then have here our high poly mesh, and then actually as you can see we have here a small offset, but that's no problem because we can simply shift the high polyfy here on the top a bit so that it kind of matches. We can also press 3 and then even match it better if possible so that it's something like this here. So something like this maybe should already work. All right, great. And then we will rename our model. So this one is the high poly, and then we can hide this one already, and this one we will just call temp remeshed, something like this maybe, because this is just a base for then the real retopology that we will do in a second. Because as you can see around the eyes and so on, we don't have that good of a topology at the moment, but we will fix that now because we will use an add-on called Octopo Remesh, and this one was actually recommended to me on our Discord and also in the comments in our last videos, so special thanks to you. And actually what we can see here, and it's really cool and straightforward, is that just with a few simple points, and you don't need to be an expert in Blender or something, you can do it as a total beginner, but just with a few simple points you can then adjust the topology on the head, and you will get this really nice edge loops around the head and the face structure. So this is really cool, and it's already available for $24, and it's not a subscription or something. You will just get it one time when you purchase it, so that's pretty cool. And as you can see, we can have then a lot of controls like to adjust the edge flow and stuff like this, and I will show you now this exactly how you can use this for your AR model to retopologize this. So first we will go in here and we will in Blender install the add-on. So we will go to Edit, Preferences, then you will see over here a window called add-ons, and then you can go here to the small thing and to the small button over here, and then you can go to install from disk, and then you can quickly choose the Octopo zip file, just double click it and install it. And once you have that, I did that already, you will see then here the Octopo remesher file, and you can just check this one and then it will be installed already. And when we're pressing then N, you will see that menu is popping up over here, and there's a tool called Octopo Remesher. And now it's really easy to do that. We first need to select our object, so I will choose here our temp remeshed. And then before we're getting started, it's very important that you choose instead of X axis here Y, because otherwise our symmetry won't work. So this is important. And once you have that, then you can click here on Add Face Markers. Then we can choose first the face nose tip over here. Then we can choose the left and the right eye, which would be around here, I would say. So let's say maybe face left eye would be then here and the right eye over here. Then the same with the mouth, same with the ears, and that should be the last step already. And once you have that, as you can see, we placed now all markers already on our head, which was really fast. What we can do then is here that we say, okay, topo retopology. And then as you can see, we get already this great topology out of the box. What we could do now is just a few things. We can first of all say the display strength should be a bit higher, maybe something like this, so it covers more of our head. And then as you can see, it's doing most of the stuff very well already, but we have this issue here that the ears are not covered completely, and this is sometimes happening. So what you can do is, and great thing is that when you move this handle here, I will quickly show you this over here, you will see that on the other side over here, the same thing will happen. So we just need to adjust it on one side and it will directly, thanks to symmetry, then also happen on the other side. So what we can do then is that we take those handles here to adjust our topology, or at least to move the edge loops a bit closer to the shape around here. So we quickly do this. And great thing is that it's most of the times only happening around the ear area, and otherwise this is already working then quite well out of the box. So we'll just move those things and adjust it a bit. It's always just like clicking on it with left click and then moving it with G actually to adjust that. Same around the eyes here. What we could do is going back to 3 and then also adjusting the edge loops here a bit, but I think they fit quite well already. Alright, and once we have that, what we can do is then first apply our mesh. So what we still can do is, as a last step, to drag those handles here down, so that it's matching a bit more with the shape of the neck. And one more thing I always like to do for a head model like this one is that we increase the subdivision a bit. So to like 2, for example, and then you can already see very good like the shape and topology and everything that we see over here. So let's quickly adjust it a bit more. And then once we have that and we are happy with what we are having right now, what we can do is then go to finalize mesh. And then as you can see, we then have here temporary meshed, okay, topo remesh. We can also hide then our old shape. And as you can see, we get then this model here with a really clean topology. And the best thing is as well, also the ears are working, as you can see here, quite well now. And the best thing is that when we go to our UV editor and just view it, and then as you can see, we get already this really nice clean UV wrapped result that we can then use for texturing in a second to retexture our head. One more thing, what you obviously notice here is here that we don't have eyes anymore. So what we can do quickly is hitting Shift A, going to mesh, and then choosing here, for example, an icosphere or UV sphere. Let's go with the UV sphere for this one. Then we can scale this down. Then we're going back into our front view with pressing 3 on the numpad. Then I will go and make this smaller here, and then I can rotate now my sphere. Once I'm here, let's also go into the transparent mode, and then we can just squeeze the eye a bit, but maybe not in this direction. It needs to be in the other one, like this, to scale it in the x-axis. Then we can rotate it in Y 90 degrees, so like this. Then maybe it's still a bit large, so this is just a thing of, you know, very small modeling tweaks kind of to see what is working for it, you know, that we get then our eye shape in here and that it's kind of looking okayish. And for eyes, it's always the thing that they need to be placed kind of inside the eye socket anatomically wise, so just take care of that we have that. But something like this is already working. And what you can do then is to also mirror this one, but first we will go and quickly give this new UVs. This is also very easy to do. So you will just in here, then we're going into edge mode, then we're choosing one edge over here, for example, because then we can't see the UV seam at all. And what we then do is that we saying here right click and then mark seam. And only thing we really need to do then is to select shell over here and then select everything and then go here unwrap. with right mouse button and then unwrap. And then we can just simply move this over here, just scale it a bit with S. And what we can then do is simply going Shift and D and then move our eye over here, that we also have it over here. And then only thing we need to do is then select in edit mode again our UVs over here and just shift it over. And then once we select all of them, one last thing we can do before that is that I'm just extruding the line that we have over here inside, so we don't have this gap here anymore. And then what we can do is also enabling here symmetry, and then we can hit E and then we can extrude actually into our eye, something like this. This should be already enough. Maybe we can reposition the eye then a little bit more. Something like this should already work. Can do the same thing on the other side. Alright, and once we are then done with placing our eyes and extruding it inside so that it looks great and we don't have that huge gaps anymore, what we can do now is just as a last thing to join all of them together. And then we do that by selecting all of them and then Control and J. And then we can say something like Retopo head. And what we can now do is that we're going to export it again, and we can do this by going to File, Export OBJ, and then I will just quickly save it in one folder over here and call it Mesh Clean Tutorial 01. Make sure then also to just choose selection only, otherwise something will come with it and we don't want that. Then we're going to export it, and then we can go back into 3DAIstudio like this and going to Texture Painter, to Texture Generator. Then we can now upload our 3D model, and then we will just choose the file that we just exported, which is this one here. Then we go to open, then it will get imported over here. Don't worry about the hard normals here. This is just a preview thing right now in 3DAIstudio because the normals are not smoothed in this case. And what we can do now is that we go to image prompt, then upload our reference image with the texture. Then we go here and I will choose this quickly again. Then one important thing is that we first go to advanced settings over here. Then we're choosing here detailed. And for texture alignment, I got best results by choosing here geometry. And then everything else you can leave as is, and make sure that you're here in the ultra section as well. And then we can go generate texture. This will take up to 3 minutes, but then it will apply a new texture from our original image onto our new mesh with our adjusted UVs with a clean topology, which is of course great. Okay, great. And once our model is then retextured, what we can do then, for example, is to just download our model. Then we can do this directly over here and then click on download. Then as you can see here, we have then our new model with the new topology. And when we go now to texture mode, as you can see, we then have the new texture applied onto the mesh and with our new texture applied onto it as well. So we can look at the result, and I think this is pretty cool because now we have actually a workable mesh with a clean topology with a clean wireframe and clean UVs. So that is pretty cool. By the way, while we were editing this video, they just released yet another update and added Neon 3D 3.0. Here you can see some great results of the model, so definitely make sure to also check it out yourself. And yeah, let me know what you think. In case you have liked this video, make sure to join my free newsletter Future Frames to stay up to date in the AI 3D world, and see you on the next one.